Well, hey friends, welcome to the Plaid X2 channel. My name is John. On this channel, we talk all things physical media, so movies, music, and books. If you're into that kind of thing, go ahead and subscribe down below for more of that kind of content. So anyway, this is a continuation of a series that I started a little while back where we celebrate the birthday of one of my favorite actors or actresses and talk about some of their work and the films of theirs that I have in my collection. So anyway, we're going to continue to do that in this video. As you've already seen in the description below, it is Chris Farley. Chris Farley is one of my all-time favorite comedians, probably top 1 or 2 all-time for me. I love his movies, I love his work, and so anyway, I'm really excited to celebrate him and talk about him in this February, the month of February, to celebrate his birthday. He was born on February the 15th, 1964, and I love Chris Farley so much. And I want to talk to you a little bit about why I love him so much. So anyway, in this video, we're celebrating Chris Farley, so here we go. So Chris Farley passed away at 33 years old, which is way, way too young. But in those short few years he was in the entertainment industry, he did put out some of the most memorable comedic performances. Now, usually in these videos, I will rank all of the movies I have of theirs in my collection, and I'm not going to do that this time for a couple of reasons. One is because his career was so short, his life was so short, he didn't star in that many films. And secondly, there are some of his films that he starred in that I won't have in my collection for a few different reasons, and I'll unpack that in a few minutes. But anyway, first let's go back to his beginnings, which the world really came to know Chris Farley through Saturday Night Live, and there is a great DVD release of some of his work, Saturday Night Live, the best of Chris Farley. This has some of his most iconic work, and so I'm really glad to have this in my collection. If you don't have this one, I highly recommend it. It is so, so good. It's amazing to watch him, so full of life and energy. I just loved his attitude. I loved his heart for comedy. I loved his heart for people. I loved his humility. And you see that in a bunch of his characters. One of the things that you'll see when you watch this release, I think it's called The Chris Farley Show. And you see him interview various people, the Chris Farley Show, you see him interview various celebrities. And one of the most beautiful ones I've seen is when he interviews Paul McCartney. And what I've heard and what I've read about Chris Farley is if you want to know what Farley was like, watch that when he does the Chris Farley Show. When he interviews someone, that is the most, that is Chris Farley being really Chris Farley. It's not him putting on a character. Apparently he was very much like that. Very, very humble, very shy. You see some of his insecurities come out, but also just really excited to be around interesting, famous, talented people he admires. And so anyway, I encourage you to check this release out. It is so good. And watch the Chris Farley Show, or go on YouTube even and watch the Chris Farley Show clips. And that is apparently the closest to Chris Farley we see when he is on Saturday Night Live doing a character, but apparently is kind of really like him. So anyway, I highly recommend this. It's really, really good. Saturday Night Live, the release of his work. I wish there was a second volume to get more of it, but we have one, which is great. There was also a release after Chris passed away, and this was done by, I believe his brothers were highly involved in this. And it's a documentary on his life called I Am Chris Farley. And this has a bunch of other celebrities, other people he worked with, people from Saturday Night Live, some people he worked with in film, talking about his life and his struggles. This is a really, really beautiful, powerful documentary on his life and what Chris went through. And seeing it through the eyes of his family is also pretty humbling and powerful. Seeing his roots, how he grew up, what mattered to him the most, and why he became who he became in this legendary comedian. So anyway, I do recommend this. It's a great release. There is a Blu-ray release of this that I will hopefully one day upgrade to, but for now, I have the DVD, and that is good enough for me. I have two of his films that he starred in my collection. But before I get to those, I'll recommend one other thing about Chris Farley, and that is a book called The Chris Farley Show. This was written by Tom Farley Jr., which is one of his brothers. And this is a book, and I know it's like the old cliche saying, I laughed, I cried, but I really did. I laughed and cried throughout this book. It's a good-sized book about his life through the eyes of his brothers, and there are so many people brought in. Lorne Michaels is brought in, Sandler, Spade, all these people he worked with in Saturday Night Live, and they talk about Chris and his life. And Chris, if you watch Saturday Night Live, you might think he's just this loud, you might have found him annoying, just over-the-top comedic character, but he really had a ton of depth to him. One of the things that was surprising for me to learn about was he was an incredibly spiritual individual. He had his demons that he could not overcome, eating and alcohol and drugs. But he had this really deep spiritual side of him that mattered very much to him. It was a huge part of his life. And I found that to be incredibly surprising, but really, really beautiful and powerful to read about. This book is outstanding. If you are a fan of Chris Farley, you're a fan of that era of Saturday Night Live, I highly recommend this book. It is so good. And I genuinely did laugh and cry while reading this book. And it gives you a ton of insight into who Chris was. And then you'll see his characters differently. It'll talk about the films that he starred in, some of the films he was supposed to star in that he didn't because, again, his life was cut so short. Films like Shrek, he was supposed to be the voice of Shrek. You can go on YouTube and search it, and you can find these really rough animations of Shrek with Chris Farley's voice, and it's really, really strange to watch those. But anyway, he was supposed to be on that. The Cable Guy, Jim Carrey, was supposed to be Farley. And so it's really interesting. I highly recommend this book. It's really great, especially if you're a fan of Farley. Now, in my collection, Farley cameoed in a bunch of films, and he starred in only a handful. And I only will keep 2 in my collection. The 2 others that he starred in, Beverly Hills Ninja, I've seen it a couple of times. There are some moments in it I find funny, but not funny enough. It's just too removed from Chris that I know from Saturday Night Live and his 2 earlier films for me to keep in the collection. So I won't have that in the collection. And then the last one is his final film, Almost Heroes. He did with Matthew Perry. And the film actually came out after Chris passed away. And the reason I won't have that one in my collection is because you see Chris failing. You see the toll on his body in that film. And so for me, there are a couple of funny moments in the film because it's Chris Farley and he's a genius. But for me, it was too difficult to watch. Watching Chris, his body failing, you see him just struggling so much. So I won't have that one in my collection either. But I want to end on a high note because these are the 2 films of his that I do have in my collection, and I love them, and I've watched them countless times. And the first one is the one, if you love Farley, you love this film, and it's Tommy Boy with David Spade. This is absolutely hilarious. So many great quotable lines in this film. If you've never seen this one, you have to see it. It is so good. And Chris is just, he's brilliant in this. His physical comedy, he's got this real sweetness about him. He just seems really naive, but just so funny at the same time. So anyway, I highly recommend this one. If you've never seen it, this is by far my favorite Farley movie. It might be my favorite comedic movie of all time. It's this one and Dumb and Dumber are my 1 and 2s. But anyway, Tommy Boy, highly recommend. And then the next one that gets knocked sometimes because they say it's like pretty much the sequel to Tommy Boy is Black Sheep. Again, Chris Farley and David Spade. I think this is outstanding. If you like their chemistry, especially in Tommy Boy, you'll like it in this one. I'm very okay that they play 2 very similar characters to the other movie because I like the other movie so much. I warmly welcome this one. There are some great moments, great memorable scenes and lines in this as well. And I love these 2. So friends, for me, these are the 2 greatest pieces of work from Chris Farley, and I love watching them. And he is, again, one of my all-time favorite comedians. So in the month of February the 15th was his birthday, but in the month of February, I do want to celebrate Chris Farley. He has brought a ton of joy into my life. I will continue to watch his work, and I know he's brought joy into millions upon millions of people into their lives all around the world. So if you've never seen those films, you've never dove into the work of Chris Farley, check out his SNL stuff. Check out Tommy Boy and Black Sheep. They're so good. I highly recommend them. And so anyway, month of February, we honor Chris Farley. Friends, thank you so much for checking out this video. Every month we will do a birthday video celebrating someone, an actor and actress, and I'll talk about the different films of theirs I have in the collection. So let me know what you think of Chris Farley. Let me know what your favorite movies are of his, what favorite maybe scenes from Saturday Night Live, his favorite sketches or characters. Let me know in the comments below. Let me know what Chris Farley means to you. So friends, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. I hope you're doing well. Take care of yourself. We'll see you next time.